So I run Guardswell Farm along with a sort of menagerie of family members. We are based in between Perth and Dundee. We're kind of sitting right up on the braes of the Carse. So we look out over the Carse of Gowrie, North Fife, Dundee, even over towards Caroline, kind of Ochterhouse, Angus direction. And we can see nearly sort of Bridge of Burn sort of area. So we've got this big kind of panoramic view, which I clearly chose a rubbish picture because it's all fuzzy. But yeah, so we converted our farmsteadings into a sort of multi-purpose space. So we host everything from parties and weddings to craft workshops, rural skill classes. We've got a small cookery school, which is a bit underutilised at the moment, but it's kind of going somewhere. And we can also sleep up to sort of 30 people on the farm in a mixture of houses and little huts, which are kind of scattered about the hillside. So it would feel a little bit wrong if I didn't go as far back as my great-grandmother to tell you this story, which is a bit extreme. Oh no, there was one there. Anyway, oh no, there you go. Perfect. So my great-grandmother Nana, she started one of the first milk bars in Scotland, in Inverarmond, which is now roundabout, but was once their farm. The milk bar sold chicken rolls and ice cream, and I'm just going to kind of make up that that's all they sold because that sounds really lovely to me. And it really was a diversification, so probably a diversification without the classification of diversification at that point in time. My granddad, Robert, who I think is the one on the tractor, was a dairy farmer, and what better way than to use some of the milk than to make ice cream. So in my opinion, Nana was kind of all about girl power, and for me, having some form of inspiration that far back is pretty cool. So then, next up on the list comes my grandfather, the one on the tractor. So this is Papa. At the age of 50, Papa was still milking cows, but he'd moved to Waterbutt's farm instead of the Inverarmond farm. So he's now in the Carse of Gowrie. He had been growing his herd steadily over the years, and then in the 1980s, milk quotas came in. And the quota was based on a smaller number that he'd been previously milking. So he was now in a bit of a kind of sticky situation, and one that he wasn't particularly happy about. He loved being a dairy farmer. A gentleman from Edsall offered to buy the extra cows to take him back down to his quota level, and then a little while later came back and said, "No, I want to buy all your cows, they're beautiful, let me have them." Papa had a pretty big decision to make at that point in time, and he sold them all to Edsall, hung up his clusters, and that was his dairy farmer life over. At the same time, my gran, she's a pretty exceptional cook, and she'd been cooking with herbs for her entire life, and she really didn't understand how people couldn't cook without herbs even. So at that point in time, herbs weren't really on a Scottish shopping list. They were maybe a sort of minty chiffonade in a fancy restaurant, or finely chopped curly parsley at home, and that was pretty much it. But she didn't really understand how you could do it without. So they did a bit of a study tour, as some of the Agritourism sort of Monitor Farm things do. They went around the south of England and kind of beyond, and they thought they'd give it a shot. So Papa, pictured here in the garden of Waterbutt's, he started a little herb nursery. So he was actually really good at it. He grew really, really good plants. They survived incredibly. And then he realised that that was a really rubbish business because nobody came back to buy anything because their plants were living for ages. So he'd get one customer. So that was a bit of a pickle. Anyway, he was in the potting shed one day, and David Wilson, who was the head chef at the Peat Inn, came in as Papa was twisting the tops of parsley plants and just chucking them in the bin. And David Wilson was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, well, they're about to bolt. I need to get rid of this bit, chuck it away." And David was like, "Well, I'll take the parsley away and I can use it in the restaurant." Anyway, David phoned back the next day and said, "Can I buy some more from you?" And Papa was like, "Yeah, sure." So then he started driving around all of the restaurants in Scotland with kind of a carload of herbs selling into the back doors, and they would feed him in return. So that's how Scott Herbs was born. So here's a little flyer. Look at the phone number. It's just crazy. So about the same time, my mum Fiona and my auntie Gillian, they took over the downstairs of the farmhouse and started a place called the Buttery. So this was like a little country house cafe that looked out over the herb garden. Their menus were really heavily herb-based, and basically they were dictated by what was in the garden or what was available at that time. And you could go in regularly and have a mixed herb sandwich, which, I don't know, that sounds appealing. But they also opened their doors on a Friday and Saturday night. and they did a BYOB dinner, and one time a reporter from the New York Times turned up, and they wrote a lovely little piece that included that they ate a leg of lamb with a zestful red currant sauce as a main course, and a raspberry bonito with blackcurrant tart for dessert. So the buttery ran for quite a few years until arrival of me kind of ruined it. So my mum had to stop working for a little bit. But at the same kind of time, Papa was still kind of moving from strength to strength. Willie Lowe's supermarket was now supplying the herbs on the shelves, and it was all kind of building up at that point. So Kirsten, my sister, who's here today with me, we kind of grew up in white vans, driving around the whole of Scotland delivering herbs. We'd help out in pack house when there weren't enough hands, and we were really kind of surrounded by super hard-working business people, I guess. So my uncle had a company called Gary Growers, which was next to Scott Herbs. My dad had his own biotech company in the centre of Dundee, and our mum Fiona by this point was working alongside Papa to run Scott Herbs. And they were supplying supermarkets in the north of England, the whole of Scotland, and the north of Ireland. So I guess we had a pretty business immersive childhood. So in between helping with all the herbs, we were pretty much free-range children. So we kind of, I'm not sure that you really were. We were like building dens, climbing trees, making catapults, whittling sticks. Kind of the childhood that was quite normal then, and that's not even really that long ago, but is now kind of deemed to be quite bucolic, and isn't that really idealistic, and send all your kids to forest schools because they don't spend any time outside, and kids spend all their time on iPads now. So it was kind of, we felt quite fortunate to live a life where we could run about the fields and not really worry about too much. And then when I was about 12 years old, Papa and I were standing in a deli in Perth, and we met a friend, and she said, my daughter's just been and done this amazing cookery course, a place called Ballinlough in the south of Ireland. And I kind of went, oh, sounds interesting. So it's a 100-acre organic farm. We pick the produce in the morning, and you learn to cook with it in the afternoon. You milk their Jersey cows, and you learn cookery techniques that your grandmother would have known, but also the ones that Michelin-starred restaurants are using. So it's kind of really diverse and wonderful. And Papa promised me that I could go to Ballinlough. So I kind of logged this, age 12. So fast forward 10 years, and I was grown up, and I was allowed to go to Ballinlough. So that was a kind of a pretty defining moment. So this sounds like a really big tangle of stories, but to me there's a really clear thread that runs through them, and it points directly to Gardswell. So in the years below Ballinlough, I would help at Scott Herbs. In my university holidays, I did marine biology, which proves to be a little bit useless now. But I would go into primary schools, and I'd plant little herb gardens and veg gardens. They'd help me sow everything. We'd tend the gardens together. We'd harvest it, and we'd make a pot of soup at the end. And that was wonderful. But I also found myself helping at the Highland Show, at Rec Food and Farming Days, events such as Feeding 5000. I was on Sasha's team, which is pretty cool, in Edinburgh. And my mum would send me off to conferences in her place because she really didn't like doing that sort of thing. So I'd meet lots of interesting people and lots of interesting businesses. So I was probably only kind of in my late teens at this point. So then after Ballinlough, my kind of my interest in everything increased sort of tenfold. I signed up to every talk and every course. I went to Nourish meetings. I organised Open Farm Sundays for Scott Herbs. I was like super passionate about all of that. And I wasn't harvesting and picking or packing, but Scott Herbs gave me this awesome platform to kind of explore the food and farming industry a little bit more. And we started looking at building a farm shop called Herb House. We were going to be on the side of the A9 at Longforgan. We had 88,000 cars passing us every single day. And we submitted a pre-planning application, everything was kind of drawn up, and that ended up feeling really terrifying. Like that was a lot of potential business. It seemed really scary, and actually, even to this day, I am in complete awe of people that run farm shops, especially kind of slightly larger ones. They're quite intimidating. Then in October, oh, there you go. Papa and my mum. In October 2011, Gardswell Farm came up for sale. So it sits kind of high up in the braes of the Carse above our family farm, which is on the flat at the Carse. It was a kind of tumbling down steading. You can see all the holes in the roof. Earth floors, apart from in the central cattle court area. And then it was a lovely farmhouse that sat out in front, and then sort of lovely rolling green hills up behind. The plan was to move there in a few years, and to farm it ourselves, with a kind of a gap of a few years letting it out before that happened. So that was the plan anyway. And then in April 2012, we had an awesome party in the cattle court. So we covered the entire floor in glitter. We painted the walls white with emulsion, which is a massive regret now. And then my dad made a spit roast for pig outside. Farmhouse was halfway through being renovated, so we filled the entire farmhouse with 50 fold-out army camp beds. And we just basically had a big party, with no knowledge that we'd created an image of what its future might be in 2012. And then it all kind of came to an abrupt halt because in 2013 my dad had a pretty serious stroke that left him in hospital for a few months and with kind of a pretty serious amount of rehab ahead of him. And so all the important things in our lives kind of came into focus and we all turned our attention to him and getting him better as quickly as possible. It was a pretty difficult time, but actually proved to be a sort of linchpin in Guardsball's future. So amidst the driving to rehab sessions and the repetitive nature of the day-to-day, because there was a lot of just sitting around waiting in hospitals and all of that sort of stuff, I started madly writing business plans for like stupid ideas, but there were gazillions of them. And it was a really good distraction. And part of my dad's rehab was a distraction as well. So we looked at buying the old farmhouse at Waterbutts back, and we were going to do something similar, grow vegetables and herbs, use the kitchen, go to cookery school. And then the next plan turned into wanting to run a food truck. So between rehab sessions, we'd drive out to view burger vans that we found on Gumtree. And at this point, Scott Herbs was still going strong, but the supermarkets were really hard work, and fresh produce was pretty undervalued in our eyes, and herbs had a really short shelf life. So my mum was still kind of busy doing the Scott Herbsy stuff. So I bought an Ivor Williams car transporter and took it to Gills and Mackay, and I bolted a shed onto the top, and I didn't really want a kind of a white burger van, it turned out. And then, as quickly as that plan had turned out, and maybe a bit flitty, that's maybe a common theme, that kind of plan turned into, let's put it on the hillside and rent it out for people to sleep in. So we kind of figured it would be a place for people to go to kind of slow down a little bit and listen to the birds and go for walks and just kind of calm, kind of nice sort of place to be, cook on the outside fires, that sort of stuff. And this, in 2014, is where the Agritourism Monitor Farm meetings come in, and it's taken me a really long time to get there. So I hadn't been going to very many talks, or I hadn't really met very many interesting people in the sort of period where I'd been kind of stuck at home. But with kind of reinvented ideas of buttery, and the herb house idea was still kind of lingering, and this hut on wheels, I thought I could probably explore this idea of agritourism that was sort of floating about. So I signed up to go to the Peel Farm Monitor Farm meeting. I didn't really know very much about it, but it was actually at this meeting that fortuitously we met the architects that Claire had used to convert her setting buildings, which were probably in a pretty similar condition to ours, no longer any use for contemporary agriculture. You can get a tractor in them, they made holes in the roof, they were really not much use. And I remember really vividly driving home, I picked up their leaflet and I called my mum on the way home and I was like, I think I found the people that could maybe help us do something with Guardsball. And I don't really think I knew what that something was, but it was just the kind of meeting people in that kind of community that surrounded the whole thing that was really helpful. So the next few Monitor Farm meetings brought back lots of recognisable faces from the last, and people that you could discuss an idea with. When an idea wasn't really a thing at that point, it was kind of a concept. We were going to pop the little hut on wheels at the hillside and convert a little bit of the steading into some loos and some showers, plus maybe a small kitchen. And we were going to fix the roof so the rain didn't bother us too much. And when I phoned my mum on the way back from the first Monitor Farm meeting, she said, in her usually kind of like, she's super supportive and open and optimistic, she was like, well, there's no harm in speaking to them. And referring to Ben Rosemary, who also did the Rural Leadership Programme. So we gave him a call. So the Monitor Farm meeting started to form a little community, and my hut accommodation idea, which hadn't really fitted into like the normal food production, networking sort of events or the farming sort of ones, suddenly had a home with people who understood that side of what we wanted to do. So in January 2015, which was less than a year after the first meeting that we met everybody, we submitted our planning application for Guardsball to become a multi-purpose event space with 4 individual, uniquely designed huts in various places on the farm. The business plan changed significantly. We decided to kind of dive in head first, as opposed to doing it in stages and not just fixing the roof. This whole central section is the category that had the 3 apexes, which then came down. And we decided to kind of become a place where we could run workshops, start growing vegetables. We were going to renovate the farmhouse and the buildings, and become a bit of an escape. And we also thought that we would host a handful of weddings a year, but it was really not really big on our agenda. In March 2015, I also went to the pricing strategy workshop, which was run alongside the Monitor Farm program, and I think by Will as well. And Caroline told the one thing for some reason that's stuck in my head. Caroline told us not to take our clothes off too soon because it was really difficult to put them back on again. But for some reason, I hold on to that, which apparently means don't undersell yourself. It's really difficult to bring your pricing up, but it's not so difficult to bring it back down. So go in there at a good level. Don't kind of undersell what you're providing. So the business plan was starting to take shape, and the Monitor Farm meetings were really helping it kind of along its way. And also the people. The people were so supportive. Everybody was so supportive and honest and willing to give positive opinions. Duncan was wonderful. He shared his amazing Excel spreadsheet that he was talking about with me. It wasn't quite relevant for the way that we were planning on running the business or the way that we wanted to pay it back. But it was wonderful just to kind of have an idea of kind of the figures associated with it, which are very good. So then in 2016 we started building, and in June 2017 we were open for business. And along the way it's been brilliant just to bump into people. So Jane Fode spoke at something. She runs the boutique farm Bothies in Aberdeenshire. She was amazing. We went to stay with her. Bumping even into things like Caroline at the Nuffield Farming Conference. All these different places that you go, you kind of happen to see a friendly face. So it's really lovely in that respect. So Gardswell's now a year and a half old. I want to look at the pictures I've got. That's the granary. And our first real employee starts on Monday, which is not just a family member, so that's really exciting. And lots of weird and wonderful things have happened. We've been featured in the British Airways High Life magazine, and we've been on Remodelista, which is my favourite website in the entire world. And the best thing is that we have really cool, interesting people that come and stay with us, just as we'd always imagined. All these interesting people that attend the courses, people that come to stay, and their kids are running about like lunatics chasing butterflies in the fields. It's kind of what we always intended it to be. And Scott Herbs was sold in 2015, and we made a very clear, conscious decision that we wanted to create a business that fitted in with the way that we wanted to live, as opposed to letting our business dictate our lives, as had been the case in previous times. And I think we're having a really good time. When we were planning for today, I sat down with my parents and we spoke about how we spoke about how we remembered things happening, and we spoke about what we each thought was going to happen to Gardswell, and we slowly realised that although we had very different memories about how Gardswell came to be as it is today, they all had a very similar theme and thread. And the one thing that ran through it was the kind of following opportunities. When opportunities arose, we kind of just like went with them. And I think that kind of goes back all the way to my great-grandmother. We didn't look at possibilities of cynicism. We kind of looked for opportunities within them. We went to visit the people that we'd met. We scribbled down business plans that came to nothing. And now we have Gardswell, which I personally think is a space that's been created by 4 generations, not just me. And I've also realised that I haven't really told you very much about Gardswell. It's more like a historic story. So yeah, that's us.